Okay, I am excited for this video. As promised, I was going to do one about dealing with difficult family members for the holidays. Um, this is a great topic and I'm excited to cover it. And as an added bonus, I think my cough is like 80% gone, 90% gone, so hopefully I'm not hacking the lung the whole time through this video. And as every time I say this, I feel like I need a cough. But anyway, so difficult family members. All right, let's talk about the word difficult. So why is a family member difficult? And honestly, it's because of your thoughts about them, that you think that they're difficult, and so you find reasons that they are difficult. And you may even have this really impressive laundry list. They said this, they did this, but somebody else could come by and say, no, actually, they really do these really nice things, and I think they're super great. So somebody is difficult because we have decided that they are difficult. And then our brain looks for ways to say, yes, this is true. So I don't like the word difficult. I've said that before, especially with children. But I understand what you mean. There's somebody you struggle with. And so the reason sometimes it's exhausting to be with somebody like that is because you really have to be like intentional. Like, okay, I always have to be on guard. Like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Whereas you're with somebody, you're just super comfortable, a really good friend, your spouse, or somebody like that, a kid you really just get along with. You don't have to really put forth effort. Like, I can just be myself. You can be yourself and we can just get along. But when you have somebody that you struggle with, you kind of have to be on guard. And so it can feel exhausting because you always have to be ready, right? So I understand, and I even struggle with some people. I'm not perfect either. And so I will refer to them as difficult for this video, but just understand it is your thoughts about them of why they are difficult. So in this video, I'm going to give you 4 different tips of things you could try to deal with, to deal with difficult family members. So difficult people are the easiest people because you always know what you're going to get with them. They are never full of surprises. Somebody who's like, oh, could they be nice? Could they be this? Like, difficult people are usually pretty consistent being difficult. And so I love to just plan on difficult people being difficult. I get lots of opportunities to practice this, but one in particular was when I had my baby George. I was already super depressed. I had baby blues before he was born and after. And we had a big baby blessing for him, and I decided to put forth some effort with it. Like, okay, I already feel kind of sad. I already feel like crappy. Like, I want to do something nice, invite people over and have this beautiful party. So I got decorations, which is not, I don't always do stuff like that. I got a Traeger so I could smoke a bunch of chicken, lots of food. Anyway, the difficult person in my life came to me to complain that I had only smoked drumsticks, and they don't even like drumsticks. So why couldn't I think about them and get them different types of chicken that they like? Because that was really inconsiderate of me. And luckily, I had already learned this, and I had to laugh because it was true. It was just this difficult person being difficult. And I even told myself, like, oh, perfect. That person's just being like what I expected. It's just going to be difficult. So if you have somebody like that in your family, when you go to Thanksgiving or a Christmas party, and they say something like this, that you can tell yourself, like, oh, this is just this difficult person being difficult. That's kind of like, okay, I knew what I was going to get. Now they're showing me that it was true. So tip number 1, you can plan on difficult family members to be difficult. All right, that moves me to tip number 2. You do not have to go to any Thanksgiving, I said try to combine the two, any Thanksgiving or Christmas party that you do not want to go to. There is no law that says you have to go to Thanksgiving. There's no law that says you have to switch and rotate sides, your side, his side. There is no law that says you have to go to Christmas. Even if your family has done this for 20 years, there's no law that says you have to do it. Can you imagine? Well, you probably can if you struggle with this. Like, you're already struggling with a family member. You don't like being with them. You feel uncomfortable. And then it's like, and now you have to go be with them. You don't have to go be with them. You can if you want, but I want you to take power of it, to be empowered by it and know that you have options. So if you were like, I'm really struggling with this person, I don't want to go. And then I feel kind of bad to maybe go on the other side because that seems like a direct dig. So maybe I would, let's just go out to eat. Let's go to Denny's. Let's go somewhere. Let's go Asian food. Let's go sushi, something completely different, right? Let's go see a movie. Let's actually just go on a trip over Thanksgiving and say, you know what? We aren't going to be able to be with you because we're going to be on a trip. It is not your job to show up to somebody's party so that they can feel better, because they can't. It is their thoughts about you coming that they think they'll feel better. Your only job is to take care of you. So whether or not you go to a party, understand that you're going because you chose to go. Nobody can make you go to this. Even if they're like, please go, you need to come, you still have that choice. So I want you to take ownership that you are choosing to go to the party or choosing not to go to any party. And don't let it be because you feel guilty. This person says they feel sad. Like, own it. If you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Okay, tip number 3, boundaries. Do you have a mother or mother-in-law that sometimes makes comments about how you look, how you're raising your children, or they might say hurtful things? It is okay to give a person boundaries. Boundaries are about keeping you safe, saying like, this is what's okay in my world. It is not about controlling another person. So it's not saying, I don't like when you do these things. It's more saying, if you do these things that I don't like, I'm going to then do this. So you could do this beforehand. You could talk to the person, or if you struggle with actually talking to them, you could send a text, an email, and just letting them know, I just wanted to let you know that we will be coming for Thanksgiving. And sometimes you make comments, especially if you're a homeschool mama, you'll get awesome comments sometimes from family members. Like sometimes you make fun of my kids for being homeschooled. And you know, I don't really like it, and it's not really great for my kids either. So if you make those comments, just know that we will leave. Or if you don't think that you can control yourself, then guess what? No feelings hurt, we just won't come to your party. So you have to say, this is what's not okay, and what is the consequence for crossing the boundary. If you do this, then I will leave. It's not, if you do this, then you have to leave. It's saying, I will just remove myself from the situation. So it's not about controlling you. It's just saying, this is what's allowed. So if you think of yourself as a country, right? Every person's a different country. And what's legal in the US is different than what's legal in Mexico. You can drink younger in Mexico, right? And so it's not saying Mexico is bad for that, but those are their rules. And if a Mexican person comes up to the US and they try to drink, then they say, actually, it's not allowed in our country, and you go to jail. So you're saying, this is what's allowed in my country, and if you cross the lines, then I'm going to leave. I'm going to go. But do not threaten something or say something that you're not actually willing to do. So if you say, if you yell at me, I'm going to go, and the person yells at you, but you're like, but I don't want to go. So don't actually give a boundary if you're not willing to enforce it. I've been given the opportunity to practice this year with 2 different people. And the first person, I was very clear and said, it's not okay to say these things or yell at me or say these hurtful things. And the person disagrees, but said that they would respect my boundaries. And I had to remind them a few times, but they've been pretty good and in respecting it. The second person, however, said they don't care what my boundaries are, and they told me that they will do what they want to get what they want, which totally took me off guard, because this other person said, okay, I understand, like, I'll do my best. And this other person was like, forget you, I don't really care. So it totally took me off guard. So I had to decide. I hadn't really given consequences. I just said, I don't like when you do this, please don't do this. And so I had to decide, what am I going to do? Because this person clearly, like, they're all over country borders. And so I decided I can just leave, and I've decided to not invite this person into my home as part of my boundaries, because if they're in my home, then it makes it a little bit trickier to kick them out. But if I go somewhere where they are, then I have the power to just leave. So that's what some of the boundaries are that I have had to give. So tip number 4. So let's kind of recap real quick. Number 1, difficult people are probably going to be difficult. Number 2, you don't have to go to any party you don't want to go to. Even if your husband and your children all go to the party, you still don't have to go. If you go, you know that it's because you're choosing to go. Number 3, it's okay to give boundaries. It's about keeping yourself safe, not about controlling them. Don't do anything that would you're not actually willing to follow through. So you can pick wherever you are. Like, okay, I can just plan on this person being difficult. Or you know what? Whenever this person does this, I instantly snap and I go back to monkey brain, reptilian brain, whatever brain you want to call it. But kind of that lower brain of just like, I want to react, I want to yell, I want to get mad. So I don't even think I can handle them. I'm just not going to go. Totally okay. Or if you can go and be like, you know, I can just go for a couple hours and plan on them being difficult. Or I can give them some boundaries and I'm okay leaving. So here is a fourth option, and it is to have courage. Um, there is a therapist, I don't know what he's called, like something, anyway, he's a doctor of therapy or something, Jordan Peterson, and I really enjoy listening to him. And he talks about if you have a lot of anxiety, that a good therapist doesn't teach you to not feel anxious. They teach you to have courage and face the things that scare you instead. That's kind of like the post I did the other day with be okay with not being okay. So learning like, okay, sometimes I feel anxious and I'm going to do it anyway. So in one of his episodes, he talks about a man who's terrified of needles and he needs to get some blood work done, but he's like completely terrified of needles. So what he does is he just slowly says, okay, next week in our session, I'm going to have a needle just sitting on my shelf and it'll just be sitting there. So the man got to come, right? And each time you tell him this is where the needle's going to be. And if ever at any time you feel scared, you get up and say, I'm out of here. And so he did this until he got to the point where he could put it on his skin. He made the man look at it, realize it wasn't anything scary. And after a short amount of time, I don't know, a couple months or something, this man was able to go get blood drawn for some test that he needed to get done because he had learned to conquer the fear. Instead of not being afraid of the needle, he learned to conquer the fear, have courage, and face it anyway. So if you think about a kid who's afraid of swimming, right? You don't go grab the kid and huck him in the lake and say, hey, you got it, buddy, just swim. There's nothing to be afraid of. You could slowly ease him into it. So you could show him a cup of water, show him that water's safe. Well, I mean, obviously, you know what I mean, but like that water in itself, you're okay. Just touching it, it's okay. You could take them to a kiddie pool where there's nothing deep, where they could walk around, they could feel comfortable. You could do something with a life jacket on it. Put their hands in the water, put their feet on it. Maybe, so like Georgie, he is afraid of the water on his head, which makes bath time super exciting. So it's trying to teach him that water is not scary. To teach him to have courage about the water instead, right? So you don't tell him that your fear is silly or like this is so dumb. Like somebody who's afraid of the dark, totally I'm afraid of the dark still. Instead of being like, don't be afraid of the dark. It's dumb to be afraid of the dark. Saying it's okay to be afraid of the dark and you can face it anyway. So how do you do this with a family member? Hang up a picture and slowly like get comfortable with it, right? So you could, this is where I think role playing is really good. To kind of get yourself ready for it. So you could have somebody pretend to be them and you could just practice leaving if you're uncomfortable. Like, okay, I'm going to just give a boundary that's an unspoken boundary that if they do something, I know I can just leave. I'm an adult. I could drive. I can get out of there, right? I don't have to stay at anybody's house. I can stay at a hotel if you're traveling, but you like practice leaving so that you know I'm powerful. I'm not just stuck in this situation. You could practice standing up for yourself. So you could have somebody role play with you, or you could say it in the mirror, like, okay, this is something that they've said before. They have said, ... I think you're a really bad mom. So you could practice standing up for yourself and saying, you know, that's actually really hurtful when you say things like that. I don't like when you say that. I don't want you to say that to me anymore. Just be done. I know I have a lot of clients who have family members who insult them or judge them. Especially my clients who are homeschool mamas, they have family members who like to make comments about their homeschooling or you're kind of done with this, right? I don't agree with this. I don't think you should do it anymore. And so instead of like cowering or just being afraid, learning to speak up for yourself. Like, you know, those are hurtful comments. I don't know why you feel like it's okay to just say that to somebody, especially somebody that's your family. I would hope you'd have my back, whatever it is you want to say. But practice standing up for yourself. Then the last thing is do some thought work about this person, knowing that they can't hurt you, especially if you have somebody who was abusive, physically, sexually, emotionally, verbally, any of those things, they can't hurt you anymore. So a thought could be, I'm not a small child anymore. I can stand up for me. They can't hurt me, right? And so having some of these thoughts that could hopefully empower you to be able to have courage in that situation. So, excuse me, the recap. Tip 1, plan on difficult family members being difficult. That's just what difficult people do. Number 2, know that you don't have to go to any party you don't want to. You always have options. You always have a choice. Number 3, boundaries. This isn't about controlling them. It's about keeping yourself safe. Set boundaries and then honor what you said you would do. And number 4, have courage. Face the thing you're afraid of and know that it cannot hurt you. So these are some of my tips for helping you with family members this holiday season. And I just want you to remember to stay in control, that you get to choose what you want to do with these situations and how you want to show up. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving and a fantastic Christmas. All right, we'll see you later.